find it here, retrench the labor, did something absolutely different, and thereby regained again a mighty power over the market. Also considered as to what happened to the rival, what you call the Minolta. Recently, when the relation between yen and the American dollar got changed, the Japanese, what you call, articles and the products became 5 times more expensive in America. Minolta, which had started selling its cameras to America, found itself in a jam that its customers in America were finding it difficult to buy Minolta cameras because it was 5 times expensive. Do you know as to what was the reaction of the management in Minolta? It called its best minds, the technological minds, the technical minds and the scientists. They gave them 8 months of time and said that you have got to retain the excellence of Minolta, but you have got to reduce the price of Minolta by increasing the productivity. And within 8 months' time, the technocrats, the designers and the engineers came out with a new formula whereby 70% of the items which go to make the shutter work were made redundant. And thereby the price of the camera again came down, not because the government was providing the support or giving subsidy, but because the costs of production were brought down by productivity. Profit is not a dirty word, but profit is dirty when you try to make it by administering prices. Profit becomes dirty when it becomes profiteering. Profit becomes dirty when you create a scarcity and don't provide products. Profit becomes dirty when it comes out of what you call taking away legitimate wages from the labor. But profit which comes out of productivity, profit which comes out of this sort of an approach which Japan has adopted, is a profit which is worth aspiring for, and there is nothing socially wrong with that. And I think in this particular area also, there is something very great that we have got to learn from what you call the Japanese. So I do not wish to take much of your time, but I would only like to say that along with Asia, our time has also come. Along with the rise of what you call the yen and along with the rise of Japan, we have also got to rise. India cannot remain a back number. The forces in India are tremendous. Nobody can stop it. Our technological power, our boys and the girls who are in demand not only in this country but outside. Our products, though lacking in quality and price, are now concentrating on modernization. And I am sure Excellency will be happy to know that some of our new economic policies are also bringing about a certain change in what you call the nature and the quality of state intervention in India. We have also decided that we have got to modernize our industries. We have also decided that the inputs of technologies must go up. We have also decided that the labor must be given its rightful position, and the labor must also be more what you call discipline-oriented than it has been today, because it is the joint effort of the labor and the management, of the labor and the state and the management that will bring the new era into its what you call prominence in this country. I am confident that together, Japan and India combined together, we will be able to march shoulder to shoulder, not only to improve the status and the conditions of our own countries and our men, but also those in Africa and other parts of Asia who are still left behind. Because we believe in it, in which you also believe, that the world does not need a war again. We believe, as you believe, that it is not the sword but the plow which is important. We believe, as you believe, that it is not the soldier but the peasant and the farmer and the worker who is important. That particular part is a part and parcel of our culture. The sensitivity which has inherited over 5,000 years of the culture of India, the mythologies which are full of this particular story of social justice, the language which has been spoken by Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru has clearly made it very clear to us that our development is not the development only of products, but it is in the quest of social justice. I told you that India has become a country which is going at the rate of 5% growth, having a rate of growth of 5%. But let me tell you, Excellency, we are not satisfied with that. Because with that 5%, we will not be able to eradicate poverty which is rampant in this country. With that 5%, we will not be able to multiply the numbers of those who are in the middle classes today. With those 5%, we will not be able to play that heroic role which we are playing today in bringing peace and harmony in Africa and Asia. But we are sure that joining hands with you, with your technology and our efforts, with your hardware and our software, with your techniques of what you call marketing and our sense of production, with our entrepreneurs and your entrepreneurs put together, we can achieve what has been dreamt of by our leaders, a great future for Asia, a great future for India, and a great future for our two countries. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now I request Excellency Ambassador Noda, a very good and a great friend of mine, to speak. I had first met him in Tokyo, and I was amazed to find the agility, the movement, the dynamism of this man. He has hardly come to Delhi, and he has already conquered Delhi. So be very careful before you are conquered. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your very kind words, Dr. Sen. Excellency, Mr. Yoshio Sakuruchi, Honorable Abid Sen, Dr. Lakshmi Narasia, Mr. Naidu, and Dr. B.Krishnam Raju, distinguished guests, members of the Japanese delegation, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, it's not an easy task for me to keep the momentum after this eloquence developed by Dr. Sen. Perhaps the images he painted for my country may be a bit overestimation. But I have to say at the outset that I was deeply moved and overwhelmed by the hospitality extended by your city of Hyderabad when we arrived last night. And also when we arrived at home with so many kind words, and particularly the words of given welcome by son of soil, Dr. Sen, and others, really heartened. Thank you very much. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to be given an opportunity to visit this beautiful city of Hyderabad and join you all on the auspicious occasion of Japan Festival, organized jointly by the Indo Japanese Friendship Association, Hyderabad, and Indo Japanese Association, Tokyo. I should like to express my profound thanks and appreciation to both the organizations for their strenuous efforts to arrange these important functions, as well as their continuing and ardent efforts to make significant contribution to the promotion of bilateral relations between our two countries. I should also like to express my sincere gratitude for inviting me to be present here this morning, together with His Excellency Mr. Sakuruchi, one-time Foreign Minister. Mr. Sakuruchi's benign presence on this occasion is truly a source of great encouragement for all of us. His long and valuable contribution for promotion of Japan-India friendship as the President of the Indo-Japanese Association and as the leader of Japan-India Parliamentarians League for friendship for many years is truly a distinguished one. The relationship between Japan and India, characterized by an unbroken tradition of mutual goodwill and friendship, has now entered, I believe, yet a new phase of further diversification and accelerated growth. In the recent years, there has been much more frequent meetings and exchanges of views at the highest level of both countries. The economy has shown a dramatic expansion. Also, there is a notable increase in the educational and personal level exchanges between our two countries. It is indeed heartening that the governmental level efforts are matched by citizens level initiative through organizations like Japan-India Friendship Association and Indo Japanese Association, Hyderabad. I believe that one of the reasons or main purpose of having this economic seminar is to promote mutual understanding between our two countries. But as Mr. Sakuruchi mentioned, that achieving mutual understanding is not an easy proposition, much easier said than done. Do Japan and India really understand each other sufficiently? At the moment, I don't think so. I think we need, because we have an increased amount of trade, although with some imbalance in our favor, and also the economic cooperation aided by our official development assistance has increased, but the amount of whatever economic transactions and relationship does not necessarily increase mutual understanding. These trade can help mutual understanding, but not exactly so. And without a certain level of mutual understanding, economic ties, trade and industrial collaboration cannot possibly grow expeditiously. This is a chicken and egg relationship. I think this seminar with the Japanese panelists led by Mr. Kaku and other eminent experts will be very helpful in promoting mutual understanding between our two countries. And I'm very sure that this seminar will be a success. I'm very sure of the success because of the very friendly and warm-hearted soil of Hyderabad will make this a success. Thank you very much, everyone.
Now we will thank you. And now may I request Mr. Rinjiro Kaku, Councillor Overall Company Limited Japan, to come to the stage and present his keynote address.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure and honor to have been given this opportunity of speaking a few words on the economic relations between India and Japan.
Excellency, there are some flowers for you.
Oh. Now, during the almost 50 years since I first came over to India, I was happy that I could participate in quite a few projects in India. But of all these projects, may I mention that I was the man who took the initiative in arranging the tie-up between Hyderabad-3 and the Nissan Motor Car Company. As I find it is rather difficult to give you a comprehensive picture of the economic relations between our two countries, within the limited time allowed to me, I shall be giving you something like an outline thereof, expecting my colleagues to complete the picture. We are happy to see that during the past few years, there has been considerable progress in the technical and financial collaboration between our two countries, resulting in a number of achievements in various fields in India. Encouraged by these activities in India, there are signs of positive interest in India among Japanese industrialists who have been more or less hesitant about taking part in Indian projects, due mainly to ignorance. Now that the industrial tie-up between our two countries has reached a certain stage when some intensive study may be made about the position and prospect thereof, I venture to give you below my humble analysis of the situation. I shall be dealing with this subject divided into two parts. Firstly, position and prospect of the Indo-Japanese trade, and secondly, those of Japan's technical and financial collaboration in India. Regarding the first point, that is the Indo-Japanese trade, first of all, we must bear in our mind that the amount of trade is an indicator of economic relations between any two countries. From Indian point of view, Japan is placed as number 2 or 3 in exports and imports. But from Japan's viewpoint, I am sorry to say that the amount of trade between our two countries, which occupied the top position a few times before the war, now remains very small and occupies only 1.1% of Japan's global trade and stands number 18 among Japan's trading partners last year. One of the problems of the Indo-Japanese trade is a wide discrepancy between Japan's exports to and imports from India, and this showed as much as $800 million in 1986 in Japan's favor, although it has sharply narrowed down to about $100 million up to June this year, mainly due to the increase of Indian exports to Japan. Another problem is the pattern of trade, which remains more or less similar to that of pre-war days, when India's exports to Japan were mainly primary products such as cotton, jute, pig iron, etc., and Japan's exports to India were finished products such as cotton yarn and fabric and sundry goods. Last year, the basic pattern was more or less the same, although the commodities were different. Only 3 items of Japan's imports from India, namely marine products, mineral ores, and diamonds, occupied more than 77%, while more than 84% of Japan's exports to India consisted of metal products and machinery and equipment. When we look at India's global exports during 1985-86, we note that more than 42% consisted of manufactured goods, in which engineering products occupied about 7%. As compared with this, Japan's import of machinery and equipment from India last year was only 0.2% of total imports. Therefore, we feel we must increase exports from India to Japan by all means, and at the same time try to change the pattern of the trade to more suitable to the industrialized India. Now the question will be how to increase exports from India to Japan. And in this connection, 5 points for trade promotion were proposed by FICCI, such as exhibition and shows, display and sales contract with departmental stores, exchange of item-wise purchase missions, quality control, warehouse in Japan for Indian products. Well, all these are quite useful, will be quite useful in their own ways, but commodity-wise export promotion may also be taken up from the viewpoint of diversification of the export items. This question involves 2 important points, and they are, firstly, promotion of exports of such items as India has abundant supply capacity, but somehow not much exports to Japan yet, and secondly, make efforts to export more value-added products, which India is well capable of supply, but very little imports to Japan so far. For the first group of commodities, we could mention marine products, tea and coffee, garments, household furnishings, including carpets, and engineering products. And the second group comprises leather products and jewelry. Exports of marine products may be increased much more if deep-sea fishing could be started in full scale, taking advantage of the very long coastline of India and the confirmed abundance of marine resources offshore. In the case of tea, it is a surprise to see that India stands number 4 in imports to Japan, after Sri Lanka, UK, and Singapore. Many Japanese housewives are thinking that tea is grown and exported from UK. As compared with the strong publicity being made by Sri Lanka and the UK, I'm afraid India may not be as effective. Same applies to coffee, which imports from India were a mere 1.35% of Japan's total imports last year. Only a few people in Japan know that coffee is grown and exported from India at all. Much is spoken about the increase of Indian exports of garments to Japan, but from the viewpoint of very large imports of garments to Japan, which is the only free market in the world, India's share was only 2.46% last year. This share could be increased considerably if more persistent publicity were made about the variety and special features of the Indian material, and closer attention were paid to the design, finish, and delivery. About Indian carpets, quality of which I believe is well comparable to the best in the world, the position of imports to Japan was number 5 in 1986, but the quantity was so small as only 0.71% of Japan's total imports, and Pakistan exported to Japan 30 times as much. This means that there must be a big market in Japan for carpets still to be cultivated by India. About engineering products, which occupy a high position while a very large amount of value-added jewelry, some of which must be using stones imported from India and elsewhere, are being imported from Hong Kong, equal to more than 35 times of imports from India. With the background of India's world-famous fine workmanship of jewelry manufacture, I do not think that there's any reason why India cannot compete with Hong Kong, provided that a good study is made on the design suitable for Japan. In the meantime, prevailing opinion among Indian exporters is that Japan is a very difficult market, which means that the Japanese market is different from the US and European markets to which India is well used. Because of the difference of language, sales system, design, specifications, which are sometimes more strict than European countries, etc., etc. To this, we can say firstly, Japan is a very big market and a typical buyer's market, and therefore Japan is in a position to buy anything from almost any country, provided that the quality, price, and delivery are suitable. And this means that Indian exporters and manufacturers will have to make a good study of characteristics of the Japanese market if they are seriously interested in exporting to Japan. Also, may I mention that it is essential for them to realize that they have strong competitors in the newly industrialized countries in Asia, such as China, South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore. These countries have the advantages of closer distance to Japan and closer industrial tie-up with Japan, with the result that the total volume of trade of these countries with Japan was more than 26 times of India. to Japan in 1985. This means that Indian exporters had better make much efforts for publicity of their products, which are not well known in Japan. Now, about the position of Japan's technical and financial collaboration with India. The number of Japan's technical collaboration in India between 1981 and 86 was 433 cases against USA's 860, UK's 704, and West Germany's 808. While Japan's total financial investment in India during the 35 years from 1951 to 86 was 132 cases, amounting to $103 million. However, the amount of this investment, which was second to that of USA during the last 6 years, was very small as compared with Japan's overseas investment. Only 0.1% of Japan's global investment and 0.47% of that in Asian countries up to last year. In this connection, we would like to mention here the points raised by the high-level Japanese Economic Survey mission, which visited India about 3 years ago, as obstructing smooth flow of Japanese investment in India. A. Insufficient infrastructure such as power supply, telephone and telex services. B. Limit of foreign equity participation to 40% in principle. C. Long time taken for obtaining approval of equity participation. D. Difficulty of obtaining raw materials, parts and components. E. Frequent changes of import and excise duties affecting manufacture. Of course, we know that most of these points are being gradually improved, but at the same time, it is to be noted that Japanese entrepreneurs are careful to check the economic feasibility of any project, first of all. As a conclusion, we can say that India is blessed with vast natural and plentiful human resources with steadily expanding economy supported by advanced technology. And therefore, there's no reason why India should remain in the old pattern of a country exporting mainly primary products to Japan and suffer from large trade gap. To get rid of these handicaps, we must stress on the fact that now is an ideal opportunity for India to promote exports to Japan, taking full advantages of the high appreciation of yen, which is greatly facilitating export to Japan. And moreover, Japan is ever so anxious to increase imports to balance the large trade surplus. Thank you.
Renjiro Kaku, for a very well thought out, well studied case that you presented in your keynote address. I'm sure my colleagues over here would have got the message of this keynote address. I think he has made it very clear that today, while Japan's trade is expanding with several countries and other continents, in case of India, it remains a poor performance. As a matter of fact, between 75 and 85, our exports to Japan have increased only by 0.4%, while imports from Japan has gone up 4 times. And today, the deficit of our trade is $407.8 million. He is making a case that a time has come when India should be able to export more to Japan than it has been able to do it earlier. The conditions are well suited for that. For instance, he has made this point that in Japan, the domestic market is expanding. In Japan, the saving which they have made because of the drop of prices in oil and the other profits which have accumulated there has made Japan a very prosperous and a rich country where people are now wanting to spend more money on consumer items and items related even to luxury, which earlier they were not doing. He has also made a point that there are international pressures on Japan now, which is going to make Japan an import-intensive country rather than export-intensive as it used to be. And here, he says, is the chance for a country like India to move in. And I'm very sure there is the other side of the coin to which my friends from Japan will also take cognizance of. One, from out of the surpluses which Japan has accumulated, I think Japan should be able to offer terms to our traders and businessmen in a manner that we don't carry too much of the burden of interest rates or of high payments. India is prepared to undertake modernization and export more machinery from Japan. But I hope it will be appreciated that with the appreciation of the exchange rate of yen, it is becoming extremely expensive and difficult for Indian manufacturers to modernize their industry by buying things from Japan. And I'm sure Japan is in a position to so adjust its relations with India in terms of financial assistance, in terms of the terms of trade, in terms of giving us loans on easy interest, which will make it possible for India to respond to it. Third, we would like some of your import restrictions which come in the way of our exports to your country to be modified. Fourth, I'm sure this is already an understanding between you and us that India is a country which believes in indigenization of its manufacturing, because you're one of the persons who have started with Alwal, and you know that while India imports a thing, while India would like to take manufacturing activities from outside, it would like to adapt it to the Indian conditions and make it its own. I would say a time has come when you must help us to build up our component industry and make it self-reliant and self-sufficient. India does not believe in autarky, but India also does not believe in remaining dependent forever, nor do you like people who remain dependent on you forever. So I'm very sure that the message which has come out so clearly in the keynote address will be the basis of further discussions today in the other forums when we are meeting, and we will try to see as to how best our two countries can take advantage of the new environment. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now before we break for coffee, we have got another interesting item on the agenda, that is presentation of mementos. May I request my friend A.V. Rao, Chairman Hyderabad Alwal, to make the presentations. Thank you.
Mr. A.V. Rao will present the memento first to His Excellency Mr. Yoshio Sakuruchi. To Professor Abid Hussain. Mr. Komuro, I request you to go here to receive the memento. His Excellency Yojiro Noda. The Consul General of Japan Address, Mr. Nobuo Iwata. Yeah. Mr. Renjiro Kaku, the keynote speaker. Mr. Yoshihiko Kamo. The architect of the Indo Japan Association, Tokyo, Mr. Mismi. Mr. Issei Kode. Mr. Akira Shinohara. Mr. Toshio Yamanouchi. Mr. Hichiro Uriuchi.